All right, great to be talking now with author Jim Masciarelli. Jim, welcome back to MSO.
Good to see you again, Rick.
Well, I love the long distance stuff right now, and you're safe and sound where you are. We're safe and sound. Oh, and I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving weekend as well.
Thank you. You too. It's been great.
And of course, today signifies Black Friday, and it's a great for me opportunity to promote a local author and give people a deal at the same time. But before we do that, we got to tell about what the product is that we're talking about today. So let's recap Beyond Beauport, shall we?
Sure.
All right, let's go back with the premise. How did you come up with the premise for Beyond Beauport? It's been published now, what, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's July of 2018, so it's about 2 years.
Fascinating story. Give us the background, Jim.
Well, I was taking a hiatus from my business career and was kind of looking for writing. I've been wanting to write a novel. I wrote nonfiction in the past. And, I was always fascinated with the women on the waterfront of Gloucester. I made good friends with many of them that worked along the waterfront and so forth. And I've been fascinated by Gloucester history for a long time. I have a rather large collection of research on that. And so I had interviewed I felt that Gloucester women were different in a good way from all the places I'd visited in the world, especially the ones in midlife who really understood the past, the present, and the future of this wonderful community of communities, Gloucester. But I said, well, what makes them so different? And, and at the end of my book, Beyond Beauport, there's an author's note which covers a little bit of detail on that. But I did decide, as a joyful skeptic, I always do my own research. And I decided to start the ladies I had met over the years and others that they introduced me to. And I think I was up to about 26 interviews. And a character really emerged in my consciousness, a composite, if you will, and that became Shannon Clark, the Irish redheaded, fearless local lady who could outfish the guys, who could tell stories, who could raise a family. She's in midlife. It's trying times for her, but ends up on a midlife adventure, which I did myself. I took a sabbatical from a very good career for a year. Everybody thought I was crazy. I sold my business, but it was one of the best things I ever did. And so I figured I threw that in there, and I said, well, what's going to make this an interesting story beyond a Gloucester story? And I love adventure books. I love sea stories, and so this protagonist, I started throwing some fictional challenges against her, right? And one of them was she's greeted by a long-lost seafaring uncle, Patrick, an Irish fellow, that tells her that she's an 11th generation descendant of Anne Bonny, and there's some treasure to be found out there, perhaps. And they go on this wild madcap adventure that toggles time from all the way back to the pirate trial of 1720. So I spent where her relative, Anne Bonny, the fearless redheaded Irish pirate, and Mary Read were to be hung for piracy. And so I blended that tool of of Gloucester history, of pirates and privateers, all the way out to Jamaica and the Caribbean and the East Coast and different ports, and did a lot of research, visited a lot of places, and I had to rewrite it a bunch of times. It took me 6 years, so I'm really happy with the results, that the great reviews that I've got on Amazon and Goodreads and so forth, and I thought it was time to give people a break, and they can get it for half price and pass it along. And I think particularly right now, Rick, a lot of us have been closed in a little bit, constrained with the virus and the pandemic and so forth. I think we all find our best ways to keep doing the things that matter. But I think what's lacking for a lot of people is that sense of adventure and openness to new experiences right now. So I'm hoping that a good sea story like Beyond Beauport and other adventure stories can inspire people for their own adventures as well as enjoying a fictional one.
I think also the description of the sea and the characters and the plot and so on. You talked about having to rewrite it, so you did have to visit these ports or go out on a boat or whatever, take notes, and then go back and transcribe it and take a look at it, see if it made sense, type thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I was fortunate. I did hire a few editors along the way, and they beat me up. And then my publisher that I finally got at age 69, I was happy to get one. Kohler Books. Then their team, beat it up pretty good, and we went back and forth on details that I insisted on having, and the book is where it is today, thanks to a lot of readers too. I had a lot of Gloucester readers, men and women, fishermen, etc., that gave me pointers on how they felt about Gloucester scenes. Everybody who lives in Gloucester has an opinion about how we present Gloucester.
Oh, you got that right. Yeah, 30,000 of them.
Yeah, and it's great. It's always good. Yeah.
You must have run into some obstacles or get a little discouraged here and there in an endeavor like that, because it is different and it does require resources, rewriting, research, editing, rejection sometimes, I'm guessing. But what were the sources? What were the sources of encouragement for you and inspiration for you in getting this thing where you wanted it?
Well, I think it was the readers. As people, I had you create a thing called an advanced reader copy, an ARC, and the publisher will put that into actually a soft cover and then a PDF, and then you can do limited distribution to people, and then you say, well, look, I'd like you to read this, and before it's published, and then you get a lot of feedback, and unless you're not a coachable person, this from sports. If you're not open to feedback and willing to change, you're not coachable. So a long time ago, in my sports career and academic career, I realized that feedback is important, and I really pay attention to it. I don't always agree with it. I'm going to challenge it, but that's the key, I think, and that's how you grow.
How do you, as a mature male, how do you create a person? Who's a female lead character with such, and being such a strong character, because we don't think like women do. I read Mars Venus. I read that book.
Sure.
How'd you do that?
Well, it just turns out, my mother had 7 brothers and 1 sister, and then she turned around and had 3 boys. So I didn't have any sisters to go by. But my mother was a very strong character, a very loving person, only one that went to college in the family, blue-collar family. And she inspired me as a kid to write and do stories and in literature and art and lots of sports, of course. She was an athlete long ago. And I just think that I've always paid attention because maybe that was lacking for me. I never had a sister. So I would read women's magazines. I would study feminism and its evolution. I've made a lifelong story of women. And I've been married twice, and I'm very lucky to say they're both great friends. And I'm currently married to my best friend, Judy. So
that's awesome.
So I think it's paying attention and listening and adjusting how you think about things. Women and men, we have a lot of commonality. We're human beings. We still have our egos and super egos and all of that and id. But I just try to pay attention. That's all.
Okay. All right. There's a metaphor there, but I'm going to leave it alone right now. I know one of my favorite authors is Isaac Asimov, one of the most prolific authors of all time.
As a kid, I read all of his stuff. I loved it, the science fiction, yeah.
And his inspiration to writing, he had a magazine where because I thought I might like to try writing at one point, but he said the thing about writing is you have to write. You just have to get out there and write and not just write.
Yeah.
With that said, maybe a comment on that, but also, interestingly enough, he didn't have in all of his fiction, which was acclaimed everywhere and all of literature, he didn't have any strong women characters until the very end of his writing. He didn't have any at all in his first books. And so I, as a teacher, I applauded when your book came along, One of the things I really applauded as a teacher was the Harry Potter series and so on,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because the women in that were strong, all the female figures. So the idea about writing, Jim, and just because I know that now, I know that you also do poetry, and to me, poetry is like for me to try to run a 3-minute mile. It ain't happening. But the aspect of writing, what is it for you, and how do you do it, I guess?
Well, my early inspiration was from my mother, who actually at age 4.5 would read me stories. And later on, one summer, I'll tell you a quick story. I was 14 years old. And a young boy at age 14 and ready for summer, it's early May, you want to get out and be with your buddies, go out and make some money landscaping and save for college and all of that. And my mother says, no, you're going to go to summer school. And so, well, really? I said, why? I mean, I got a B plus, and by the way, that's all I ever wanted to get. It was enough to make her happy, and I didn't have to work hard for it.
There you go.
So it was a whole different ball game when I went to college. I had to work hard for those grades. And she said, "You're going to go take typing." I said, "Typing?" And no sisters, remember. So there I am sitting. Okay. And she said, because you're a fairly smart kid. You're going to go to college. You're going to go to a local college because none of us can afford anything else. And she said, I'm not typing your term papers.
There you go.
So there I am, as a little guy hunting and pecking on her typewriter when I was a young kid, and then as a preteen, basically, I was in a home ec class of typing with like probably 28 girls, and you know what I learned? Geez, they were a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Instead of getting binging by my older brothers and called all kinds of names like Dumbo and things I can't even say today,
No.
But no, I really enjoyed them. It was fun. So I think it was a lot of it had to do with my mother, and also some great teachers, English teachers along the way that I had in high school and in college that just inspired me to get interested in literature and writing. And by the way, at Holy Cross, the Jesuits were pretty tough, and they taught us about journaling. So for years, I kept journals of college ruled notebooks, and I didn't throw them away. I put them in I put them in boxes, and by the time I was 30, I must have had 50 of them.
Oh.
And so every day I like to free write a little bit and then go to the computer. But I went back and I mined that information on because I could remember experiences and details. And so I think a little bit of free writing is good for everybody every day. It helps you clarify your thinking.
That's interesting, because I have a couple of old things every now and then. When I'm cleaning up my filing cabinet, and I'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. The other thing is, the most useful course I have ever had. I took typing. I took 1 semester of typing my senior year in high school, and there were 3 of us other boys. There were 4 boys, seniors in that class, and it was all girls elsewhere. So
yeah, that's what I had. I was the only boy. Yeah.
But to this day, my daughter will say, "How are you doing that? You're not even looking at the keyboard."
Exactly. I mean, one of the best things that ever happened to you and I. Yeah, because. I've been keyboarding forever. It's great.
I want to ask you about the reviews you've gotten, Jim, because there are a million excellent reviews about this book. And what I want to say about the book also is the fact that for local folk here on Cape Ann and the North Shore, you're going to recognize many things, but it's much more than that. And you do travel, and it's if any of our friends see this out in California, this is a book that they can grab a hold of as well. Plus, it is great if you've never been to Gloucester, you ought to read about this.
Yeah.
But the reviews that you've gotten, Jim, what are some of your favorites, or at least what are they talking about that make you feel proud about the book?
Well, it's good to get them from readers. Also, it's good to get them from well-known authors and that I respect. And one of them, Johnny Dufresne, was a writing teacher, professor. He is even today, and he was out of the Worcester area long ago. But I met him at the Sanibel Island Writers, and I spent time at the Grub Street in Boston Writers. I went to their annual conferences, the Muse and the Marketplace. And I like to work with other writers, and I mentor a few other younger ones or older ones that are trying to write their first books. But Johnny says, he said something in there that was interesting about novels. He said, a good novel, and he wrote a good review, you'll see it on the jacket cover. He said, a good novel puts you in the scene and makes you feel something. And I think a lot of people, that's important. And, that was the part that was a stretch for me, because I had written nonfiction most of my life, a business book and so forth and other things, articles in trade magazines and thought leadership pieces and things for clients and so forth in the industry. And so the jump to fiction was kind of a giant step for me in a way. It was, and a lot of it had to do with point of view and bringing in how to write snappy dialogue. And thankfully, I have about 45 different books on writing, which are somewhat helpful and deeply disturbing. And now, because it's like, okay, this, and at some point you have to throw the rule book out, and you got to find your own style.
Oh yeah, and I read that a long time ago when I was a kid. I think Isaac Asimov, one of those, said, you got to know all the rules before you can start to break them. And yeah, and it's pretty cool. I lost my train of thought here. I was going to ask you about something about you just mentioned.
You're talking about putting people in the scene.
Oh yeah. One of the things about thank you. I taught when I was teaching teachers. We had a course on de-stressing, and one of the things had to do with mindfulness. And what you described, what your reviewer described, is wow. That makes so much sense, because when you can do that, you're sort of not even in the room you're in. You're in the book. And that's a great compliment, but I never realized you just hit on something that, wow, that's why I like certain things that I like.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been a teacher and a coach, so you know that you have to get out of your own skull to try to really get into somebody else's experience the best you can,
And the thing I like about books is, along with music, is that they're both personal and universal at the same time. You can take something like your book that everybody likes or nobody likes, whatever it might be, not that yours is, and then you read it, you internalize it and say, okay, this is mine. I don't care what everybody else thinks, or yeah, I see what everybody else sees. So literature is fantastic, but having local literature, I don't think we have enough of it that carries us into that. And you did an interesting thing. A lot of local literature has to do with folklore in the area. But yours expands on that. It looks back, it looks ahead, it travels. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, the actual people of history from Gloucester and early privateers and all of that. And I'm on the captain's circle at the Schooner Adventure, and I've really enjoyed the historic ships there. And I'm really hoping that the Schooner Festival will come back again.
Oh God, yes, yeah.
I really missed that season this year, but there's a lot of fabulous people that contribute time and effort and labor. I contribute mostly money, but I think the people are fantastic, and they're keeping that maritime heritage alive. They're really important.
I want to go off topic here for a second, because have you ever met Linda Greenlaw?
I have, indeed.
When I met her, and Shannon, how you describe how you built Shannon reminds me of Linda Greenlaw when I met her. I was expecting this movie character, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. And when I met her, she's this little bitty thing.
Yeah.
And so well spoken and educated, and it just blew me away. And the other thing that caught me, Jim, was she called herself a fisherman. She called herself a lobsterman. Not a fisher person, not a lobster person. She said, no, I'm a lobsterman, I'm a fisherman. But it showed me I had this preconceived notion and this bias, this prejudice of what a Gloucester fisher person or fisherwoman should be, and I was way off base. And it's sort of like, that's sort of an inspiration for your character.
I think you're really right on the money there. I think, again, coming from a blue-collar family, I think the wisdom of folks that aren't necessarily college educated. I mean, I've got master's degrees and stuff like that, and you know what? To me, it's all about a person's character and their ability to reason and communicate. And sometimes the people that haven't been through academia actually have a lot more interesting things to say, I think.
Well, I tell you, it was fascinating, and I see a parallel between Linda Greenlaw, the fisherman and author, and
Yeah.
your character.
Linda's a very sharp cookie. I mean,
Oh
what
yeah.
she's accomplished in the film business is unbelievable. And from Rockport, I mean, and Gloucester, I think it's fantastic.
No, it's incredible. All right, let's talk Black Friday, Jim, because a couple of things here. I want to ask you about how you weave your poetry into your writing, and then we'll talk about how we can get a hold of this book as a bargain for holiday shopping.
Okay, well, I was a Walmart shopper at 5:30 this morning because I
There you
needed
go.
to I needed to get some things for my automobiles, but I was happy the traffic was light. But let me take your question a little deeper. What, as far as beyond the holiday, what do you want me to
Oh,
cover? Right?
I wanted to ask you about the poetry, about
Oh yeah,
your creative juice there.
I did. That's a minor activity for me, but I want to do a lot more with it. I really enjoy it. I enjoyed it in college, and then I kind of put it aside. And I have many books on poetry, and a lot of books on folk tales from different cultures as well, which I enjoy. But yeah, I infused it into the book. As you noticed, I had my character through my character Shannon Clark. I had her in a couple of key moments. Really processing her own thinking, through poetry and stanzas. And of course, my favorite was the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner when I was in college, right? And so I decided to try in the book a little bit of iambic pentameter.
Oh,
So
boy.
that was actually a first for me. More recently, you might have noticed on my blog, I was talking about the brain fog that everybody's going through. In my case, it's probably from anesthesia from so many surgeries on my joints, So I'm rehabbing my hip at the moment, So it's something we all, go through. So I wrote that one, and it was a little bit dramatic about how they saw your bones and this and
Yeah,
that.
I kind of like, yeah, can't do that at the breakfast table, but yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
poetry is definitely lifts your spirits. The kind I read anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. You mentioned the rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. My favorite is the Iron Maiden version. Sorry, but all right, Jim. So here we go.
Last thing I want to say about my football alliances. Obviously, I'm in Tampa now. I'm in Naples now, and I've been following the Buccaneers
of course.
More than I am the Patriots after many, many years. And boy, did they get their ass kicked.
Yeah.
And
well, it happens. It's a cycle. But
oh yeah.
we're still fans. All right. So Jim, tell me about the website and the best way now to get hold of your book, because this is it's a great adventure story, and the different versions of it. It would make a great gift for anybody who hasn't seen it yet.
Sure, or reread it. I've got some people who've read it more than once. So, but yes, right now, Kohler Books has dropped the price virtually in half from the softcover price of $17.95. It also sells in hardcover and ebooks, but right now we're doing a promotion on the softcover, and so it's available on Amazon. It's available. You can come to my website, jamesmasciarelli.com. Click on the little Thanksgiving and holiday greetings that I gave, and you click on the link, it'll take you right to Amazon. But it's also on all other channels, including bookstores and so forth. And I will say this, that on December 20th, we're going to be promoting for one day through Bargain Booksy and other channels a 99-cent ebook version of Beyond Beauport just for that day. So, but right now, right through the end of the holidays, the soft cover is available. I mean, at the lowest price it's ever been for that period of time.
Okay. And on the website, you have sort of an interactive website where people can actually communicate with you?
Yes, I do. And I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well, but not that much, but I'm there. Yeah, I read it every day, see what's going on.
All right. Anything I didn't ask you about, Jim, that you want to mention?
No, not really. Yeah, maybe the one thing is, what am I writing now? I'm working on a short story collection of fiction, but what will come out before that, I hope, by the end of 2021 is a creative nonfiction. I love writing creative nonfiction stories.
Wait a minute. What does that mean? Creative nonfiction. Explain that
So
one.
you take real events, a real time period, real personages, and so forth, and you can and kind of write using narration, different kind of narrators, and some dialogue. You can introduce new non-historically fact-based information, but the settings and the people are true, the events are true, but the way you tell the story is more really in story form.
Gotcha.
So you can trick it out a little bit. Yeah.
This is what's nice here in the studio.
Oh yeah.
Getting a call from my wife who was just here. All right, we're going to wrap this up, Jim.
I'll just say one last thing here.
Yep.
See these two books? These are the two best books on creative nonfiction.
Oh, okay.
Right? Those are the two. They're fantastic.
Very good. I'm going to check those out. We're going to obviously link to your site, and I want to wish you a very happy Thanksgiving Day weekend and happy holidays, and we'll talk again soon.
Peace to you, my friend.